let's go to the other side of Manchester. We mentioned Manchester City there. Manchester United, The Guardian, in your paper, Jonathan. Explain this story, if you will. It sends a negative signal. Simmons hits out at Ratcliffe over United women remarks.
Yeah, Kelly Simmons, the outgoing head of women's football at the FA, and she has made these quite outspoken comments, but I think quite true, to be honest, at the Fair Game conference about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who I think has made no bones or been pretty unequivocal since he's joined the club, and the fact that the women's team is not remotely his priority. He's used phrases like it's not what drives the dial, it's not the core part of the business. And quite apart from being, really kind of boneheaded from a visuals and an optics and a PR point of view, given the fact that the women's team have been far more successful than the men's team, really, in the last few seasons. It's also bad business. As clubs like Chelsea and Arsenal and Barcelona are discovering, you invest now in your women's team as a long-term investment, because this is a game that is growing rapidly. It's a game that has no ceiling really in terms of the potential market it can reach, and investors are getting that. Sponsors, commercial outlets, broadcasters are managing to grasp this. But for Jim Ratcliffe, who's still kind of pinching the pennies at Carrington and getting rid of free lunches and the making cuts to the club's community budget, it's very much a sort of a narrow-minded, short-term kind of thinking.
Difficult to pass out exactly how bad the finances are at Manchester United, isn't it, Charlie? As Jonathan says there, an era of frugality, austerity at Carrington, but he should be going to the Women's FA Cup final, shouldn't he?
Should be supporting it, of course he should. And let's not forget, Manchester United were disgracefully late to the party in terms of taking women's football seriously. Most of the other clubs had proper setups way before United decided they were way behind. So they've got a lot of catching up to do. Obviously, they had some success on the pitch. But as Jonathan says, while in the past women's football has lost some money, in a financial point of view, the teams were taking it seriously. It's going to be profitable, and there's endless opportunities. So I think it's crazy from Jim Ratcliffe to say what he has. Equally, in terms of his focus, he will argue that the women's team is not losing anywhere near as much money as the men's team. So that will be his worry, and it's all about money. And of course, at the moment, that first team at Manchester United is hemorrhaging cash, which is why, of course, they've gone to the Far East to play an absolutely ridiculous post-season tour just to earn £7.5 million.
We'll come on to that in a second. I just want to get your sense, Jonathan, on just the future of women's football, because we've got this fascinating prospect. I know your colleague Tom Gary has written about the London City Lionesses coming up to the WSL, broke away from Millwall Football Club. We know they have a really rich backer behind them in Michelle Kang. But just wonder, is there a future where we see women's teams as separate entities? Is there a sense that there is a holding back that happens with the affiliation with the men's?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. You talk to people within the game, and within the women's game, and they do say, like, London City Lionesses they're not really a serious prospect. They are trying to make big name signings and smart signings to help them stay in WSL next season. But it's also a really interesting model for how the women's game progresses, because it's really a bet on the fact that if you're a women's football team, you either have the big backing and the big fan base that a big men's club can give you, or you try and break out and establish an entirely new brand, an entirely new team, and basically try and find new fans that weren't really going to the game before. So if they do succeed with that, I think it unlocks all kinds of exciting new markets that the women's game probably needs to try and attract if it's going to grow to the extent that its investors would like it to.
Interesting. I remember Doncaster Bell's been the top team when I was a boy. Interesting to see how that situation develops in women's football.